have David and I share the presentation in that we've really, over the years, gained quite a lot of experience, and we want to share both of our experiences with you. So I'm going to invite Dave to come up. Can we please make sure that this gets videoed, because it could be potentially good for the website. What we're going to do is we're going to just simply take it in turns, and we've looked at some points that we felt that would really enhance your understanding of evaluation and how you can improve, or how we, because it isn't about you, it's about we, you and I together, how we can collectively improve our ability to give an evaluation as well as our understanding as an audience from a participation perspective. I'm going to ask Dave to start the evening with his presentation. Thanks, Dave.
We're going to be jumping back and forward, but we're also going to be timing it because we don't want to go over the time that we've got. Effective evaluations benefit everyone. Now, in some places you might hear them say, well, if you're evaluating a speech, it's really only good for the person who's just done the speech. In Toastmasters, we believe something quite different. We believe that there is three people, or three groups of people, that benefit from an evaluation. You yourself benefit by listening and thinking and presenting an evaluation. The best way to learn something is to do it. The speaker learns ways in which to help themselves and to improve. And then, because we do it in the third person and we don't say to the person, you did this and you did that and you should do this and so on, we say the name of the person. And Gary's speech tonight was, then everybody in the group actually learns. And interestingly, future audiences also learn because they come and they hear good speakers.
One of the keys to evaluation is to know what you're evaluating. And I know for a fact that I myself have sat in an audience. I haven't spoken to the speaker, so I don't know what they're really trying to achieve. I've evaluated them on what they've said, but do I really do them justice? And the answer is simply no. For if we don't know the objectives that the individual has in their speech, then we can't give them credit of evaluating them to those objectives. In our manuals, the objectives are very clearly set out, so there is a little bit of help for those of us who don't always get to speak to the speaker ahead of time. But if you can, speak to the speaker as their evaluator, find out what they want to achieve, and you will find that the experience of evaluating is actually enhanced, because you know that you're providing the speaker with the feedback based on their objectives. And isn't the idea of an evaluation to give the speaker something that they can work from? And if you do it in the right order, speak to the speaker, evaluate their objectives, then the speaker can walk away knowing they've achieved their objectives or that they missed the mark. So be it in that case when you work with the person. So always think and be aware of being aware of the objectives of the speaker.
As an evaluator, you should always consider the speaking level of the person you're evaluating. So if somebody's just starting out in their speech-making career, you might want to be a little bit more gentle and encouraging. And if you are trying to evaluate somebody who's more experienced than you, then that's fine, because it's your opinion that matters. I remember going to a club many years ago where, in fact, the person that was speaking stood at the front and did this little shuffle around in a bit of a square. It was an inexperienced or less experienced speaker that was teaching the other person who was a more experienced speaker. This is what she did. That made a significant difference to Ellie. At the time, that was who it was that was being evaluated. But she'd never realised she did this little shuffle, and I didn't see it either. Your opinion matters. Remember, what you're trying to do is to improve the speaking ability of the person you're evaluating.
Thanks, Dave. As a side, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to put your hand up and ask, but there will be a Q&A at the end if anyone would like to be aware of that. A speech evaluation is a pretty simple thing to do. You just listen to the speech, take some notes, and then share some of your opinions. Right? I don't think so, do you? There are tools available to us that we can take advantage of. That is actually not a bad formula. Listen to the speaker, take some notes, and then share your opinion. In essence, that's what you're doing, but it is no simple formula. Another thing that we can do, and I would encourage us to do, is to look for other ways that we can learn. I'll toss it out there. Who's got any other ideas about how we can use, what tools are available to us that we can use and learn from? Video? Brilliant, well done. It's on my list. What else? You know my golden rule of silence. How about other evaluators? How many of you, and I know I can speak for myself, have watched evaluators and thought, I want to evaluate like that? I love the way that so-and-so actually really eyeballs the situation without being focused too strongly on the individual, but they really put things in a nutshell. I love that. And I remember watching it and thinking, I want to give that a go. No, I'm still working really hard at perfecting that, but I'm working on it. So I would like to encourage you to always have some tool that you're working toward. There's also lots of visual effects and things like recordings on YouTube. Have a look at the YouTube under evaluation. I'm telling you, it is packed full of good ideas for us to use in evaluation. So take advantage of the tools available to us. But that good formula of listen, take notes, and share your thoughts. Just don't let it become ho-hum.
We'll roll with our little timer here tonight. The next thing that I want to talk about is just be honest. No matter what you do, be truthful with what you're evaluating. If the person hasn't done a very good speech, don't tell them their speech was fantastic. If there were parts of a speech that they weren't so good at, don't tell them that was great. On the other hand, don't tell them, gee, that was a terrible speech, from the front. One of the things that is very important is to be as truthful as you can in your presentation. Later, and this is something that we should be doing anyway, it's a good idea to give the person and say, how do you think you did? How do you think this part worked? And then you can be more direct and probably a little bit more able to just share those things that you perhaps thought were not so good.
Have you ever heard anyone, when they're evaluating, say, we thought that was a fantastic speech that so-and-so gave tonight. Everybody in the room was totally absorbed by that speech. Well, perhaps everybody wasn't. And perhaps everybody didn't think that it was a great speech. So I want to caution us to being, evaluating speaking on our own behalf, not the behalf of everyone else. For if you are doing an evaluation and you speak on behalf of everyone else, and then you give a recommendation also based on the behalf of everyone else, stop. Think. What effect does it have on that person if everybody thought that they would have been better off if they practiced a little more? Everyone thought that if they slowed down. You see, that's vastly different to it being just my opinion, that if you slowed down a little. See the difference? So it's your opinion you're giving, not everyone's. Be really careful to make sure that when you're speaking, you do speak in the third person, but you also speak on your own behalf. Remember, evaluation, in essence, is your opinion about a speech that you've heard. There's a pretty good phrase that says, there's pretty good phrases that start with, I thought, I wish that so-and-so had done, or I liked the way, I felt that this speech, and it reflects what I was thinking. And then the person and I can talk about it from my perspective and their perspective, not from a collective audience's perspective. Dave.
Next little thing is to say, avoid the absolute statements. You should never do a speech with your hands in your pockets. That's what we call an absolute statement. It's probably not a good thing to do. But it's an absolute. You should never. Not so sure about that. Or you should always do it this way. The only way to do something is this way. And then what you do is you find somebody that breaks the cycle, breaks the whole pattern, and you are in a little bit of trouble. Because Toastmasters, unfortunately, does have a habit of creating formulas by which we write speeches. And then along comes somebody that does something totally different, and it's fantastic. But we shouldn't get into these absolute statements of, you should never. This is the only way. This is the best way.
I have a question for you. How can we make sure that constructive criticism doesn't completely outweigh praise? I'll ask you that again. How can we make sure that constructive criticism doesn't outweigh praise? Anyone got any ideas?
Commendation, recommendation, commendation.
Commendation, recommendation, excellent. The secret to them is being specific. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about when we're giving a recommendation, we can say the gestures were poor. So what? Big deal. On the other hand, we could say the gestures were limited for the first half of the presentation. But that's a little bit more specific because the person now knows that during the first half, but there's a glimmer of hope, the second half things improve. How about gestures could have been improved in the first half of the speech by moving her hands from the lectern. She could easily have made them, she could have more easily made natural gestures. You see, that actually gives them a reason, a substance to it, so it's very specific. So when we're giving a recommendation or a commendation, think carefully about what impact on the speaker what you say is going to have. What will be the outcome for that person? So if you're thinking the gestures were poor, then it's pretty narrow. It's nothing for the person to take away and work from. But if you give them something to work with, it makes a whole lot of difference.
In an evaluation, we should never evaluate the speaker. Try again, I'll say that again. We should never evaluate the message. Now, by that I mean this following. Somebody might come up here and, very topical at the moment, talk about the good things of owning a gun. Now you might totally and utterly think that's the wrong thing to say, but that's not your job. Your job is to evaluate how well the message was delivered. You might totally and utterly hate what the person is saying. They might be talking about recycling or gay pride or something that's right off the wall. By all means, you can talk about it and start a debate later. That's not a problem. But from the front, as you're delivering your evaluation, you focus on how the message was delivered and how it could be improved.
Thanks, Dave. Earlier on, I talked about evaluating to the objectives, being sure that you understood what the speaker was trying to achieve. Having that as your basic premise, what else is there though for us to evaluate on? What can we watch for? So here's just a few things. The content. Now that's not about the topic of the speech. We don't evaluate the topic. So that's not for us to decide whether a speaker should have chosen a specific topic. But the content is their delivery, the process of their thinking, the preparation of it, the objectives that they set from them. That's the content of a speech. The speech structure itself is a really good area for us to look at as evaluators. I personally, one of my favourite is when a speaker adds humour. And sometimes the humour is just so understated, and I think we all know we've got a very good understated speaker in our group. And I love when I see him coming up here to speak, because I know I'm going to get a smile, not a giggle, but I also know that later in the week I'll think about what he said, and it will have that same wry smile on my face. Thanks, David Knight. Visuals. Use of visual aids is a really good tool, but learn how to use them well and be aware that if you're going to evaluate, you've got to have an understanding of what was involved in using visuals. Eye contact. I love eye contact because the eye contact is an area where when you're first beginning to be a speaker, it makes a big difference if you understand the connection and the power of your eyes with an audience. If you know that you can take an audience on a journey with you just through your eyes, it's magic. And to encourage our speakers to take that and think about it when they're doing their preparation is really useful. Gestures are another good tool. Have a think about the other areas that you as an evaluator can incorporate into your evaluations to help them become colourful, full, and basically still yours. Dave.
And just one final point is about combining the three elements of praise, areas for improvement, and specific suggestions. Combining all three of those together make for effective evaluations. As an evaluator, you have three roles to fulfill. You're a motivator. That's somebody who reinforces the desire to improve in the speaker. You're a facilitator. You're providing methods of how to improve. And you're a counsellor. You simply enhance the confidence of the speaker before the group. Three things: motivator, facilitator, and counsellor. Mr. Toastmaster.